Hello and welcome to the Student Accounts Fall 2022 Tuition and Fee Payment Timeline. The purpose of this video is to explain the timeline of assessing tuition and fees, sending billing notifications, as well as to review the timing and process that is required by the state of North Carolina to cancel registration of students who have not paid by deadlines. So to begin, let's talk about where to find information related to this. So as with our other videos, I would direct you to the studentaccounts.appstate.edu website. When you get to that website, you can find important details as far as dates located on the left-hand column, as well as by clicking on our calendar and going to the correct month. You'll see important dates here, and you can click on them for. The first thing I'll do is explain the cancellation process, as that is probably one of the most important things that I'll talk about in this video. As a member institution of the UNC system and part of the state of North Carolina, state statute as well as state policies require that we have a process in place to invoice and collect payment prior to the start of the semester. That being said, we as well as our peer institutions understand that paying the full balance prior to the start date at times is not possible. The cancellation process essentially deletes a student's schedule for the upcoming term unless one of several processes is completed by the student and or authorized user. I will go over those in detail at the end of this presentation. To begin with, though, let's look at the billing timeline as well as cancellation timeline. You can see detailed information that might be more easy to understand by clicking on the billing tab on the Student Accounts website. These are the things you can do listed in bullet points here that would avoid the student schedule from being canceled. I'll go over those again at the end of the presentation. But what I'm going to focus on and start with is the timeline. So students that are continuing students have been registering for courses for fall since as early as April 1st. New students register at their appropriate time after completing appropriate orientation processes. For all students who have registered for at least one credit hour and or have housing and dining charges for the fall, students will be invoiced on July the 13th. That is when the initial invoice will be sent. I'll begin by saying all of our communications, including our invoices, go first to students at their App State email address, not personal email addresses. And then they additionally go to anyone who has been authorized in the TouchNet Billing and Payment Center by the student. There are instructions regarding how your student should do that by clicking on the Orientation and Tutorials area There's a variety of videos that go through how to do this, as well as tutorial documents. And in this case, they would click on this how to set up parent access. I will note briefly, it goes into much more detail, but I'll note briefly that there are two separate types of authorization that the student must complete for us to be able to speak with you, as well as for us to give you access to and be receiving invoices. So please watch that brief video. That is one of the most important things I'll tell you, because if they don't do that, then the parent or authorized user will never get communications from us to make sure the student is on track related to cancellation and billing. So going back to the billing tab, our timeline, again, we'll start billing on July the 13th. We'll bill somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 students, as well as sending invoices to their authorized users in the TouchNet portal. And then we begin a process that again starts on July the 13th and takes us through August the 15th. Once we bill on the 13th, the student, or in some cases the parent, will complete processes to basically confirm the student for billing purposes to attend the Fall 22 semester. Once any student is confirmed and has passed this process, the student within 24 to 48 hours of completing the process will be confirmed and will receive an email to the student email address only, stating that they have been confirmed and that they are protected from this cancellation process that I have referenced. Again, any of the activities up here, if any one of those is complete, the student would be confirmed and would receive an email within 24 to 48 hours. So we bill here. We bill everyone who has any charges on July the 13th. Some students and or parents will complete the processes very quickly. And once that one of those processes that are mentioned above is complete, the student will receive the email, and the student will basically be omitted from future billing that I'm going to talk about here until after classes have started. Then any remaining balance that might be out there, the student will be billed for on a regular basis, at least monthly, sometimes more than that. So again, once a student is confirmed, they are essentially bypassing the rest of this process. For students that are not confirmed after this first bill, meaning bill hasn't been paid or one of the following requirements here have not been met, we'll send a follow-up invoice that is also updated on July the 20th, 27th, and again on the 3rd and the 10th. Each time we send those out, many students will complete the processes and again will drop out of this billing process until after classes start. Once that occurs, your student is safe from cancellation. Again, we would then bill, usually it's weekly, on the 27th, and only students who are still subject to cancellation would get that bill. Some students would be protected after that because they've completed the processes. We would then continue on in this process, billing only students who are still subject to cancellation. On the 3rd of August, our wording will slightly change, and it'll be referred to as a cancellation reminder. Again, not intended to be threatening, but more just to catch the student's attention or your attention to make sure you're aware that the student still has activities that need to be completed to avoid cancellation. On August 10th, again, for folks who are still subject to cancellation, we'll send out a similar email. It'll be worded as a cancellation or a final cancellation warning, and that'll be on August the 10th. Let me make a special note here that while we are not canceling classes until August the 15th, early that morning, if you are mailing us a payment or bringing us a payment in person, we must receive that. We must receive that by 3 o'clock on Friday, August the 12th. If you're paying online, then the portal will remain open until we cancel. But I will just advise, we do use third-party software, and we highly recommend that you paying prior to the last second, just in case there were to be any third-party software-related issues. At 8 a.m. on August the 15th or thereabouts, we would then perform the schedule cancellation process that's required by the state, and we would delete the courses that the student has been registered for due to non-payment. At that point, there's really not a way to get those classes back. So this is incredibly important. Once a student is canceled and has their courses canceled, the only thing that the student can really do at that point is, assuming they have no prior balances, which new students would not, on the 16th of August, the student would have the ability to go back in and re-register. But at that point, class availability will be very, very limited. So we highly advise for you to take action as early as possible. I have plenty of people that are calling us on the 12th saying, "Where's my bill?" Of July. So it won't be available and emails won't go out until sometime on the 13th. But we highly recommend that you take action early. It avoids stress over summer, especially if your student's new, and it avoids the unfortunate process that we have to do based on state requirements of this cancellation process. We understand that your student, advisors, and in many cases faculty have spent a lot of time working on getting your student enrolled, and we don't take that lightly. We truly want to cancel 0 students, but we do have state obligations that we must meet, and so we must cancel students who have not done one of the things that I'm going to talk about here in just a moment. And again, just as a reminder, if you're bringing payments in person or mailing them, they must arrive in our office August the 12th at 3 p.m. They must arrive by Friday, August the 12th at 3 p.m. So now let's go back up and see what the options are to get out of this cancellation process, to get bypassed from cancellation and to pay your bill for your Fall 2022 balance. So here's the options, and I'll go over these in a little bit of detail. The first option seems fairly logical, seems fairly easy, is to pay your bill in full. Now there is a video that will walk you through the different methods of payment that we accept. And that video is under orientation and tutorials and is then under billing and payments. It'll walk you through exactly how to do that once you get into the TouchNet portal. That being said, paying a large bill, and let's face it, higher education is expensive. And so paying that bill is not always possible to pay in one payment in full. And we totally understand that. So I'm going to outline some of the other ways that your student can be excluded from this cancellation process without paying the entire bill to the penny prior to that August the 15th cancellation date. The second option is to pay the balance, just like you did here, but to pay the balance less any financial aid that you have. So when your student's awarded financial aid, that aid is not going to immediately post to the account. Financial aid cannot truly post those transactions to the account until no sooner than 10 days before classes start. So what they do is it's called a memo, but essentially a memo or memoed aid is posted. You won't see it as a transaction, but you'll see the total memoed aid when you log into TouchNet and when you get your bill. And the amount due is going to show the net amount. So for example, if your bill was $10,000 and you had $6,000 in financial aid that was approved and memoed and ready to pay, then to complete this option, you would just need to pay the $4,000. Now that $4,000 can be paid all at once, or you can pay in a payment plan. So we do offer payment plans, as we show right here. There is a document there's a document on our orientation webpage right here that walks you through exactly how to do that. In brief, though, our payment plans, they open on July the 13th, right here, when we bill. You cannot set up a payment plan or really make payments towards your bill until we assess the charges. If you set up the payment plan in July, you can spread that payment out over 5 payments. If you set the payment plan up in August, you can spread it out over 4 payments. Or in a worst case scenario, if you set it up very late in September, then you would spread that payment out into 3 payments. There is a $40 enrollment fee for that, and that essentially goes towards the cost of the software that's providing the payment plan. And you'll have that option for a payment plan each semester going forward. It is done by semester, not by the year. So this would be for fall only. And as a reminder, the tuition and fees that'll be on your account will just be for fall. Spring is assessed, billed, and paid completely separate. That process starts in November. So, other than these options that I have gone over thus far, which are right here, the other options would be if you have something that's somewhat unique, such as military funding. So there's a lot of different types of programs. If you're a student, or if you or a spouse or other scenarios have military educational benefits, the VA is incredibly slow when paying institutions. It's not a quick process. There's a huge amount of students that they process. And we fully understand that we're not going to get that payment. We are actually not even allowed to bill that payment to the VA until after classes start. So if you or your student has military funding, there is something called a military funding authorization that you would get from the VA, from your counselor, and you would need to provide that to the Office of Student Financial Aid. If you're unsure of who to talk to there, just call financial aid. Their number is 828-262-2190, and they can get you to the correct person. But basically, providing that funding authorization would protect your student's schedule. And then the last thing down here, and this is much broader. So there are circumstances that don't fall into the top 4 categories. I'm just going to list a few of them, but this is not conclusive as far as being full. Oftentimes a student has private loans. And private loans have certain requirements that sometimes delay the funding by a week or 2. This may come into play here. If your student is paying with 529 money or IRA money, those things are not always quick. There's time for funds to settle in whatever investment account it is. Typically, they cut a paper check and send it to us, and so it's not instantaneous. Or if you have other funding that for some reason this timeline just doesn't work for. What the student, and I would emphasize the student here, can do. Authorized users, parents, you cannot click this button. It has to be the student. The student would log in to the TouchNet billing and payment portal, found right here. And that basically takes them to a portal called AppleNet, which is how students do most of what they do when they're enrolled here, register for classes, those types of things. And inside there, the student would go to the student accounts area, and inside that, there's a link to the TouchNet billing and payment portal. When the student then clicks that TouchNet portal link, they are already authenticated, and so it would take them straight into the TouchNet portal. When the student logs into that portal, there's going to be 3 or 4 different pop-ups that pop up very first thing that you have to respond to before you can move forward. There's one about GradGuard tuition insurance. We are indifferent as to whether your student participates in that. There's not a benefit to us, but we do offer that convenient link to accept. There are acknowledgments of our withdrawal policy and drop policy. I highly recommend that you pay attention to those. And if for some reason you can't see it as a parent, then you can find those by going to refunds, and you will see right here our withdrawal refund rates, and it has our policies as well as a link to rates as to how that works. Obviously, we hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, that acknowledgement pops up for the student. And one of the acknowledgments is a payment agreement. So it will pop up inside that portal just for the student, and the student can basically acknowledge or consent to having a valid method of payment to pay the balance. And what will basically happen is, on a daily batch, we pull those and review them, and then assuming the student is qualified to use that payment agreement, they will be protected from cancellation. They will then fall out of this billing process, right? So once you're protected from cancellation, you bypass the rest of this. And that will be on until Sunday the 14th. So if you're going to use that option, you have to use it by Sunday, August 14th. And that basically is saying that the student has a way to pay, but there's a timing issue. Timing with payments in higher education, we all realize that depending on the source, it's not always as immediate as everyone would like it to be. And so that is an option. So those are the ways you can avoid cancellation. I highly, highly recommend that you proactively address this after getting the July 13th bill. And we will be glad to assist with any questions in our office. Now, when it comes to questions, we bill between 20 and 21,000 students. Usually, we also bill as many as 2 or 3 authorized users for that student. And so we're often sending out, when we send out a bill, 50,000 emails. Now, needless to say, I don't have in our office the staff to answer 50,000 questions at once. And so if you do have questions, we highly recommend you do it early so that you're not getting stuck down here right next to cancellation and still have very important questions that that need to be answered. We do staff up and have additional staff during this peak time for us, but inevitably, it often requires us to call you back or to email you back. Again, as a reminder, very important things is to understand this cancellation process and timeline, and to also make sure your student has authorized you as an authorized user, not just for the parent portal, which is one of the authorizations, but most importantly for the TouchNet billing and payment portal. And by doing so, when they enter your email, that will get you on the list to get the same communications we send to the student. There's also a texting option. Again, you have to opt into that by putting your phone number in there, but if that's more convenient, we're limited on the text we can put in there, but we certainly let you know, hey, you need to check your email. So that concludes the explanation of the tuition and fee payment timeline for the fall 2022. I hope this is beneficial to you. Please go in and check out our tutorials and our orientation documents. While we're still updating a little bit of this, most of this is complete. And we will also, sometime in July, we'll have it posted on this website, as you can see right here, Sometime in July, we will add at least a couple, if not more, information sessions where basically they're just question and answer sessions via Zoom. And the only thing we ask is before that you review these documents and videos, because this answers truly 99% of questions that students and parents have. Thanks for attending our video, and we look forward to seeing your students in the fall.